Hello. Today, we will solve a question from the TOEFL reading section, focusing on the read an academic passage question type. We will practice identifying the main idea, tracking key details, understanding cause-effect relationships, and noticing repeated concepts so we can choose the most accurate answer based strictly on the passage. Welcome back to another high-energy TOEFL session. I am so excited to guide you through today's reading practice, where we will break down a passage step by step to boost your comprehension and test-taking speed. If you are finding these lessons helpful, please take a moment to subscribe to my TOEFL and join our learning community for more weekly tips. The origins of national parks. Let's start by looking at the title. The title is The Origins of National Parks. This tells us exactly what the passage will discuss. The word origins means the beginning or the history of something. So, we can expect the text to explain how national parks first started and why they were created. This gives us a clear roadmap. We will likely read about history, reasons for establishment, and how these parks have evolved over time. National parks are protected areas created to preserve natural landscapes and wildlife for future generations. This first sentence gives us the definition and the main purpose of the topic. Notice the phrase protected areas. This is the core definition of a national park. The sentence also tells us the goal, to preserve natural landscapes and wildlife. This helps us understand that the primary focus is on conservation and keeping nature safe for the future. The first modern national park, Yellowstone, was established in the United States in 1872 after scientific expeditions documented unique geothermal features and diverse ecosystems. Here, the author provides a specific historical example. The key word, Yellowstone, is important because it is identified as the first modern national park. We also learn the reason it was created, because scientific expeditions documented unique geothermal features. This connects the creation of the park directly to scientific discovery and the value of the land's features. Governments soon realized that protecting large natural areas could also support tourism and scientific research while preventing uncontrolled industrial expansion. This sentence expands on the benefits of national parks. Besides protection, governments saw they could support tourism and scientific research. Crucially, it mentions what the parks help avoid, preventing uncontrolled industrial expansion. This contrast between nature preservation and industrial growth is a key concept to remember. During the early 20th century, many countries began creating their own protected regions based on similar conservation principles. Now we move to the next time period. The phrase early 20th century signals a shift in time. We see that this idea spread globally as many countries adopted these ideas based on similar conservation principles. This shows the growth of the movement. Researchers compared biodiversity levels in protected and unprotected forests and found that species survival rates were often higher inside national parks. This sentence introduces scientific evidence supporting the parks. Researchers looked at biodiversity levels. The result of this comparison is vital. Species survival rates were found to be higher inside national parks. This validates the effectiveness of the protection. Conservationists argued that legal protection could safeguard habitats from hunting, logging, and urban development. Here we have a key vocabulary word. Conservationists believed legal protection was necessary. They wanted to safeguard habitats against threats like hunting, logging, and urban development. The context here suggests that safeguard means to keep safe or defend against these harmful activities. Educational programs within parks also helped raise public awareness about environmental responsibility and sustainable land use. Finally, this paragraph mentions another role of parks: education. Educational programs were used to raise public awareness. The goal was to teach people about environmental responsibility. This adds a social dimension to the biological purpose of the parks. Today, national parks face new challenges such as climate change, increasing visitor numbers, and limited funding for maintenance. The first word, today, signals that we are now discussing the present time. The focus shifts to new challenges. Specifically, the text lists climate change, increasing visitor numbers, and limited funding. Listing these problems is important for understanding the current situation of national parks. Some regions have introduced reservation systems and visitor limits to balance tourism with ecosystem protection. This sentence presents a solution to the problem of overcrowding mentioned earlier. Regions are using reservation systems and visitor limits. The goal is to balance tourism with ecosystem protection. This word, balance, implies they want to allow tourism but not let it harm the nature. Comparative studies between heavily visited parks and less crowded ones show differences in wildlife behavior and vegetation health. Here, the text mentions research again. Comparative studies look at the difference between busy and quiet parks. These studies reveal changes in wildlife behavior and vegetation health, showing the impact of humans on these areas. International cooperation now allows countries to share conservation strategies and improve global biodiversity protection efforts. The passage ends on a positive, global note. International cooperation helps countries share conservation strategies. This collaboration aims to improve global biodiversity protection efforts, suggesting that national parks are part of a worldwide network. Let's start with the first question. This is a main idea question, which asks us to identify the primary point of the entire passage. What is the main idea of the passage? The question asks for the main idea. To answer this, we need to find the option that covers the content of all three paragraphs: the origins and purpose, para 1, the spread and benefits, para 2, and the current situation, para 3. We must avoid options that focus on only one small detail or state things not found in the text. Let's take a closer look at option A. National parks are mainly created to promote tourism activities. This option claims the parks were created mainly to promote tourism. While the text mentions in sentence 3 of paragraph 1 that protecting areas could support tourism, the primary goal stated in the first sentence is to preserve natural landscapes. Tourism is a secondary benefit, not the main reason. Therefore, this is incorrect. Now, let's take a closer look at option B. National parks develop to protect nature and continue to face modern management challenges. This option has two parts. First, it says parks develop to protect nature, which summarizes paragraphs 1 and 2 excellently. Second, it says they face modern management challenges, which perfectly summarizes paragraph 3. This option covers the entire passage. Therefore, this is correct. Now, let's take a closer look at option C. Industrial expansion is the only threat to protected landscapes. This option uses the word only. It claims industrial expansion is the only threat. However, paragraph 2 mentions hunting, logging, and urban development as threats, and paragraph 3 mentions climate change and increasing visitor numbers. Since there are many threats, this is incorrect. Now, let's take a closer look at option D. Scientific expeditions are no longer necessary in conservation work. This option suggests scientific expeditions are no longer necessary. The text actually says the opposite. Paragraph 3 mentions comparative studies are still happening today to understand wildlife behavior. The text never says science is unnecessary. Therefore, this is incorrect. The correct answer is B, because the key expressions in the text directly match this option, while the other choices either provide incomplete information or clearly contradict the passage. Moving on to the second question. This is a vocabulary question, which tests your understanding of a word in context. The word safeguard in paragraph 2 is closest in meaning to. The question asks for the meaning of the word safeguard in paragraph 2. Let's look at the context. Legal protection could safeguard habitats from hunting, logging, and urban development. The sentence lists threats like hunting and logging and says that legal protection does something to the habitats against these threats. It implies keeping them safe. Let's take a closer look at option A, measure carefully. Option A suggests measure carefully. This would mean measuring the size of the habitats. This does not make sense in the context of preventing hunting or logging. Therefore, this is incorrect. Now, let's take a closer look at option B, protect from harm. Option B suggests protect from harm. If we replace the word, the sentence reads, legal protection could protect habitats from harm from hunting. This fits perfectly with the idea of defense against threats. Therefore, this is correct. Now, let's take a closer look at option C, replace completely. Option C suggests replace completely. Legal protection does not replace a habitat, it keeps it as it is. Therefore, this is incorrect. Now, let's take a closer look at option D, ignore temporarily. Option D suggests ignore temporarily. This is the opposite of what conservationists want. They want to pay attention to and save the land, not ignore it. Therefore, this is incorrect. The correct answer to this question is B, since this option alone fully and clearly addresses what the question is asking, highlighting the importance of careful reading. Next, we have the third question. This is a factual information question, asking for specific details about Yellowstone. According to paragraph 1, why was Yellowstone established? The question asks why Yellowstone was established, according to paragraph 1. We need to find the sentence in paragraph 1 that mentions Yellowstone and the reason for its creation. That is sentence 2. Yellowstone was established after scientific expeditions documented unique geothermal features and diverse ecosystems. Let's take a closer look at option A, to create new industrial zones in rural areas. Option A says it was to create new industrial zones. Paragraph 1, sentence 3 actually says the goal was preventing uncontrolled industrial expansion. This contradicts the text. Therefore, this is incorrect. Now, let's take a closer look at option B, to preserve unique natural features identified by scientists. Option B says it was to preserve unique natural features identified by scientists. This matches paragraph 1, sentence 2 perfectly, which states the park was established after scientific expeditions documented unique geothermal features. Therefore, this is correct. Now, let's take a closer look at option C, to provide housing for growing urban populations. Option C mentions providing housing. The passage never mentions housing as a reason for parks. In fact, paragraph 2 mentions protecting habitats from urban development. Therefore, this is incorrect. Now, let's take a closer look at option D, to increase agricultural production in the region. Option D mentions increase agricultural production. The text discusses preserving nature, not farming or agriculture. Therefore, this is incorrect. The correct choice should be marked as B, because the context of the passage supports only this option. The other choices involve surface-level reading or misinterpretation. Let's handle the fourth question. This is a negative factual information question, indicated by the word except. All of the following are mentioned about modern national parks, except. This question asks, what is not mentioned about modern national parks? We need to check each option against paragraph 3, which discusses today and modern parks. We are looking for the option that is false or missing. Let's take a closer look at option A. They may use visitor limits to protect ecosystems. Option A mentions visitor limits. Paragraph 3, sentence 2 explicitly says some regions have introduced visitor limits. Since this is mentioned, it is not the exception. Therefore, this is incorrect. Now, let's take a closer look at option B. They experience funding challenges. Option B mentions funding challenges. Paragraph 3, sentence 1 lists limited funding as a challenge. Since this is mentioned, it is not the exception. Therefore, this is incorrect. Now let's take a closer look at option C. They eliminate all tourism activities. Option C claims they eliminate all tourism activities. Paragraph 3, sentence 2 says the goal is to balance tourism with protection, not eliminate it entirely. This option contradicts the text. Since it is false, it is the correct answer to the except question. Therefore, this is correct. Now, let's take a closer look at option D. They encourage international cooperation. Option D mentions international cooperation. Paragraph 3, sentence 4 states that international cooperation allows countries to share strategies. Since this is mentioned, it is not the exception. Therefore, this is incorrect. The correct answer is C, because the key expressions in the text directly match this option, while the other choices either provide incomplete information or clearly contradict the passage. Finally, we arrive at the fifth question. This is a rhetorical structure question, asking about the relationship between two paragraphs. What is the relationship between paragraphs 2 and 3? The question asks for the relationship between paragraphs 2 and 3. Paragraph 2 discusses the early spread of parks and their principles in the early 20th century. Paragraph 3 discusses today and the new challenges they face. So, we are looking for an answer that connects history, principles, to modern challenges. Let's take a closer look at option A. Paragraph 3 describes current challenges and solutions following the historical development explained in paragraph 2. Option A states that paragraph 3 describes current challenges and solutions following the historical development in paragraph 2. This perfectly matches our analysis. Paragraph 2 is about the past, principles, and paragraph 3 is about today's issues like climate change and funding. Therefore, this is correct. Now, let's take a closer look at option B. Paragraph 3 repeats only the historical examples provided in paragraph 2. Option B claims paragraph 3 repeats only historical examples. This is false because paragraph 3 introduces new topics like climate change, which are modern, not historical repetitions. Therefore, this is incorrect. Now, let's take a closer look at option C. Paragraph 3 focuses exclusively on early conservation laws. Option C says paragraph 3 focuses exclusively on early conservation laws. This describes paragraph 2, or the past, not paragraph 3, which starts with today. Therefore, this is incorrect. Now let's take a closer look at option D. Paragraph 3 presents unrelated information about urban transportation systems. Option D claims paragraph 3 presents unrelated information about urban transportation systems. While it mentions visitor numbers, it does not discuss urban transportation systems, like buses or trains in cities. Therefore, this is incorrect. Here, the correct option is A, which shows that once we understand the main idea of the text, identifying the correct answer becomes much more straightforward.